meeting of Winthrop School Board to order. Starting at 6 o'clock, we'll go ahead and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. We'll go ahead and start with our roll call. It looks like everyone is here. You know, our student representative, Joseph, he's at a tennis meet right now, tennis match. Other than that, we have everyone. Are there any adjustments to the agenda?
There are none.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the Winthrop School Board meeting of April 16, 2025 as written.
So moved.
Seconded. Any discussion at all? Okay, all those in favor? That's a unanimous vote, thank you. At this time, we're going to enter into an executive session, so those folks who've been asked to stay for that, we ask that you do so, and those who are not, we ask that you step into the hallway just while we have this meeting. I'll entertain a motion to readmit an expelled student based on the superintendent's recommended re-entry plan.
So moved.
All those in favor? Okay. Thank you for your unanimous vote. At this time, we'll enter to our public comment section of our meeting. We have, if anyone would like to speak, we ask that you may step up to the podium. And if anyone is online, please indicate on that. Okay, at this time, we have no public comments. So we'll enter into our reports, starting with our superintendent report by Dr. Foley.
Thank you. This evening, I'd like to report the resignation of Brad Severance, bus driver. And the board's next learning opportunity will be at our next board meeting, where the administrative team will present the safety workshop. And in your board packet for the month of April are the financials, and we spent approximately $182,000, which is on par with where our spending has been in previous months, a little bit higher. We are now predicting that we may end the year with about a $400,000 fund balance, and we would like to see our undesignated fund balance at around 5%, which is about $670,000. We won't hit that target, but at least we predict that we're going to have something left over that would be almost 3%, which is a good start for rebuilding our undesignated fund balance, which is currently at $0. I also attended the town council meeting on Monday, and I'm thrilled to report they voted 6-0 to support the school budget. And we now urge everyone to come out and vote in favor of the school budget on Tuesday, June 17th. The town has used some of their assigned fund balance to reduce the impact of our expenditure increase of 9.2, and because they're using that assigned fund balance, I believe that they are predicting this will result in no increase to the taxes for the taxpayers for the upcoming year. Our next Zoom meeting will be tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. and you can access the link for that meeting on the website. Please join Megan White and myself, and we're here to just answer any questions that the public may have about the budget or anything that's happening in Winthrop Public Schools. So we've had good attendance at the other two, and I hope to see some people on the Zoom call tomorrow at 9 a.m. I was able to attend the art gala a little while ago before coming to the board meeting, and our walls at the grade school are just filled with beautiful artwork, and it just looks like we have so many talented artists in our district, and I know that's because we have 3 talented art teachers also instructing our students. So it's just, if you get a chance to go to grade school and see some of that art, it's just truly amazing. And this is also Staff Appreciation Week. And I just want to thank all of the amazing staff, my administrative team. I just am so appreciative of all of them. There's been a lot of sacrificing this year as we've lived with the frozen budget all year. And they've just done an amazing job of navigating around that frozen budget to ensure that we're still providing quality education for all of our students. And that concludes my report for the evening.
Thank you so much, Dr. Foley. Does the board have any questions regarding the superintendent report? Okay. You see the informational here for fall coaches at the high school, middle school. Any questions about that? Perfect. We'll head into our chair report. I also just came from the art show, and it's funny having been there year after year. I always, and being on the breakfast cart, when those are all taken down, it looks so bare. But right now it's filled with color, so it was really nice to go over there and take pictures with kiddos of their art and see everything. And actually, I was fooled. They have this Dunkin' Donut display that's a Dunkin' Donut art, and I was like, oh, they're Dunkin' Donuts, and I was sorely disappointed to find out those were salt dough Dunkin' Donuts. But they're beautiful. I mean, it's so cheery. And let's see, I attended the CATC Advisory Board meeting on April 29th. That meeting was really just to focus on upping the attendance, the machine tooling program. They're looking for more, how we can make this program appealing to students and kind of modernize it. And so, they were looking for ideas and whatnot regarding that. I also attended a hiring committee with Sue on special ed, and that was wonderful. I'm excited to talk about that later on in our agenda. And family breakfast is tomorrow morning, so those who signed up at the grade school, I just love it. I know it's super stressful. I see the staff, our nutrition staff working hard and getting that ready. I think last night we had like 80 parents or families or whatever, maybe more than that.
I think it was close to 300 to 400.
Oh my gosh. Oh, well, I'm way off. I'm way off. Well, that was, it was in one session only. So I'm not great at estimating, but it was crazy last year because I helped out and I attended. So looking forward to that again. I think that's super, that they decided to do that in the grade school to welcome families and whatnot. And town council, I was also there for that. I could not believe it was a unanimous vote. I mean, when has that ever happened since I've been on the board? I love that we are so supported. I appreciate the work that has gone into that with Dr. Foley and Nick and Anthony and to the town council members. I mean, I know that they went through this budget with fine tooth comb and did everything that they could possibly do to support us here and ask us questions. So I just thank them. Let's see. I believe that's it. And also I just echo your sentiments with staff appreciation. We just really appreciate our staff and everything they do for our schools and community and our students. And that does conclude my chair report. And we'll turn the time over to Abby, who's going to give us the student representative report.
The Winthrop athletic program continues to see strong performances across multiple sports. The basketball team the baseball team, earned a dominant 14-0 win over Madison, while the girls lacrosse team secured a 13-3 victory over Fulton. At the 32-team Huskies Throwdown, Winthrop track athletes delivered outstanding results with Hunter Reynolds claiming first place in discus and Jacob Price of first in javelin. Several other athletes earned top 25 finishes and celebrated significant personal records. In girls tennis, Gabby Janik advanced in the State of Maine singles regional qualifying tournament with wins over Oxford Hills and Mount Blue. Both teammates Riley, Caroline, and Chloe also competed well against strong regional opponents. Boys tennis match against Alldale has been postponed to next Tuesday at 3 p.m. The Winthrop High School proudly celebrates Chloe Moody and Zion Armstrong, who were honored at the Governor's Award for Service and Volunteerism for their exceptional commitment to community service. Chloe was named to the Maine Youth Roll of Honor for over 100 hours of service, while Zion received both the Roll of Honor and the Exemplary Youth Volunteer Award for completing more than 600 volunteer hours. We congratulate all our student athletes on their continued success and hard work. Then the recent Art and Humanities trip to New York City was a tremendous success. The students experiencing a wide range of cultural and historical highlights, including 2 Broadway shows, visits to Ellis Island, Statue of Liberty, the Empire State Building, the 9/11 Memorial Museum, Radio City Music Hall, the Guggenheim, and the Metropolitan Museum of Art. This Friday, the Drama Club will attend a performance of Now and Then at the Public Theater in Lewiston, followed by a Q&A session with one of the actors. Looking ahead, Winthrop High School students are gearing up for the annual Day of Caring next Tuesday. The Ramblers will engage in various service activities to give back to the community.
Thank you very much, Abby. Really appreciate your report. Does the board have any questions for Abby? Okay. That wraps up our student representative report, and we'll enter into our committee reports, starting with finance.
We did not meet, but we're meeting on the 21st.
Thanks, Tim. And policy?
We did meet, Dr. Fuller, can you remind me of that date?
Oh, no, I don't have that in my memory.
I don't have that in my memory either. However, we did meet, and I have something I need to read out about that, because we found out in going through some of the policies that we have not been following a policy that was adopted in 2010, and that is policy BEDG, board minutes. Okay, and I'll just read from the policy. When a board member abstains from voting because of a conflict of interest as defined by law, his or her abstention and reason for doing so shall be recorded in the minutes. And then it goes on to say there are only a few reasons that a board member can abstain from voting. One, for financial reasons. It must be a direct conflict of interest as outlined in policy BCB, conflict of interest. The other reason that a board member can abstain from voting is if their child is up for expulsion. And the third is if we are voting on the minutes and the board member was not present. So we just need to be aware that we are following that policy. And if there is, a verifiable reason for someone to abstain from voting, we need to record what that is in the minutes.
Thank you, Monica. If I could just ask a clarification on that last point, in order for board member to vote on the minutes, you have to be present at the board meeting. Okay.
Correct.
Or watch the video. Okay, gotcha. Perfect. Ivy?
I have a question on that. So when it has to do with a legal proceeding, I would assume that would trump policy. Because that would jeopardize a legal proceeding. And also issues that should not be publicized or a board member should have to publicize.
I don't think there's anything about the legal proceeding. The financial reasons would be, the financial reasons why you might abstain is if your brother is like bidding on a contract that the board's like, bidding on or becoming aware of. If we were having a renovation done at the grade school and the architect that we're going with, like we've had 3 presentations, and you have like a direct conflict, like your brother-in-law is one of the ones putting in the bid. That would be a financial reason why you would abstain, because you have a personal interest in that. But if it's something about a legal proceeding, I don't think that that would be a reason to abstain unless that legal proceeding somehow, if it was something that we were voting on that was in direct conflict. And I can't think of an example of what that would be.
Okay, does that conclude the policy reports? Okay, thank you very much, Monica. And negotiations, we actually did have a meeting scheduled this Tuesday, but we did move that. We haven't scheduled a new meeting yet. Oh, we did. Which is on, do you have it on here? Right, it's on the, oh yes, I have it down. The 13th at 4, so that's, we moved this week's meeting to next Tuesday at 4. So that's for our support staff, and then we are currently in mediation. We're working on, we have a meeting tomorrow regarding that with those in negotiations with them. Tomorrow. Okay. We have no administrator reports, and we'll turn the time over now for the presentation from Energy Management Consultants.
Joel, I'll have you just kind of come up and talk about how we just introduce them, would you?
Sure.
Thank you.
Thanks for giving me a little guidance.
Oh, I know.
So this is Tom Seekins from EMC. Eric, I'm sorry, my last name. Rodster. So originally we started this project with another company. With another company that came into like about a $6 million bid. We were able to talk to EMC and get some things down to us for about 2.5, and that's what we used for money to do the projects that are currently in place now, such as the boilers and the lighting. So what they're going to do tonight is just explain to you basically how we funded it, how we got here, the savings, and what the savings can do to help us. Thank you guys. Then I'll be right here if you have any questions.
I'm Tom, I'm the president of Energy Management Consultants. As Bill said, we responded to a competitive RFQ back in 2022 based on some budget numbers the district had been given for, around $6 million to do some boiler improvements and lighting projects. And after about 6 months or so of engineering and getting competitive bids together, the projects came in a little over $2 million and had considerable savings. It was a pretty successful project. It was mostly the impetus behind the whole initial phase 1 project, as we called it back then, was to focus on the boiler rooms, especially because you had no redundancy in a couple of them. Mainly the swing down here. In high school, obviously, I only had one boiler, and they were cast iron sectional boiler, which were oil, extremely inefficient, and more importantly, if they went down, then you were down for 20, 25 weeks because cast iron sections are hard to get. So it became a real important endeavor to focus on the boiler rooms, and then the lighting became a no-brainer because of the sheer savings. So cumulatively, the two items together, the boiler rooms at every school and the lighting paid for the entire project, the annual payment. This concept basically is that you're not going to take the savings from the kilowatt hour savings and the fuel savings out of your budget the following years. You're going to leave your budget as is with the 3% escalators that you carry or the new rates that you carry. In this case, going from oil to propane. Because that savings left in your budget is what's making your payment. So anytime you take those savings out of your budget the following year, you obviously can put yourself in a position where the money's not there to put towards the payment. So I'm not sure if any of that ever happened. I'm just telling you the concept of self-funding energy projects. This is one of the better projects that we've actually done in terms of boiler projects, and we've done a ton of them. 26 boiler projects just last year alone. So this was probably one of the better ones by now. So successful project, as you can see there on the notes. Eric's going to go through it, but there's a lot of information on that thing with energy calcs and showing, improving the math on how we got to the savings, because you have to do that by law. You have to show exactly how you got your savings, based on BTU, based on the BTUs needed, used, the cost per unit of energy. So you're saving units of energy, not cost, because of course the cost of each unit of energy changes every single year. So it's units of energy saved. But that's all the math that's in that document that Eric has put together. And really the executive summary is going to showcase the success of the project. Now, anything that happens, outside of this project. So, for example, Joel gives a tour of this building with the heat pumps that are installed. That's going to draw a significant amount of electricity. So that's going to obviously alter savings associated that we've identified in that report. That would be outside of that parameter. So just keep things like that in mind. That was done well after we had done these calculations back in '22, right? So we also identified a lot of other things in the district, aging infrastructure, that I think was important to note, and probably Joel wanted to make note of it, that while this was a pretty expensive project, it was lucrative in terms of savings, but the middle school is still 1975 and all original equipment with air conditioning units that haven't worked for probably a decade and a half, and obviously obsolete refrigerant in those units. The 50s portion of this building, 60s portion of this building, the 75 portion, which is this room right here, these are all original as well, and then a portion of this building has no mechanical ventilation at all. So those were things that were identified that would be something to be looking into, as well as the building automation controls that I think has been really a thorn in Joel's side for a long time. Just getting everything under one control platform, because now you have multiple systems throughout the district, and even worse now because you have a different control mechanism for this, fighting the controls on this that you already have. So that was a recommendation back then that you really should be looking into that stuff if you're going to be focusing on energy and infrastructure, because without the proper controls, you're never really going to be totally in control of your buildings, right? And so it is important to look at that stuff. And then when you consider everything is about 20 years ASHRAE standard for equipment, when it's 50 years old, it's obviously well over twice its life. And then same with here. And then the high school is 2003, so that's already in its life. So it is important, as we were talking to Joel, and he's called many times about budgets, to try to get some things worked into the budget, to start replacing things proactively, because if one of those air handlers fails at the middle school or anywhere else and you haven't planned it, you're going to end up being reactive and putting in something you necessarily don't want because you need it immediately, versus planning ahead, the year ahead, for next year or the year after, and doing it the right way, getting good competitive bids, having plenty of time to engineer it correctly, So it's been a couple of years since we've been here, so I just wanted to kind of make sure that everybody knew that, because those things are still out there. So Eric's going to go through the report, and this is all his handiwork, so he should have a lot of credit for it. So.
All right. We're going to put it up on the screen. It did turn red, but it's not popping up. Has anyone seen the PDF version of this report beforehand?
It was in their packets.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
If you look at it on your computer, that's what I'm going to be showing you. We'll put it up on the screen. I'll show you how to navigate it. It's got some really good bookmarks and hyperlinks, so you can go right to the section from the table of contents. It's a lot harder to navigate through in the paper copy. It's the same document. This might help you. If you don't have it, I'd be happy to send it over. Okay.
Yes, you can use.
We gave you all.
Share.
It's not working?
You warned us though, Chris.
You warned us in the conference room, this might not work.
Okay. So I'm not going to go through, every single page in detail. I really just want to give you guys like a tour of the document. I'll let you get in as deep as you want. I'm certainly, excited to talk about anything you guys want to dive into. I just didn't know if this would be the forum to do so. But one of the first pages is the table of contents. You can see all the different sections. If you read anything, I read the executive summary. That's basically tailored, a one-page Cliff Notes version of need more arms. Oh, cool. So the executive summary is a one-page Cliff Notes version of the scope of the project, when it was done, what was done, the savings associated, and basically just the whole report in a nice summary for you. But then it gets into the introduction, and that gets into more depth, and it starts to really get into details about what the project was, and saying everything like the timeline and what the scope of work was. And then the first big section is the baseline overview. And what that describes is how because this project, the way the performance contracts work is that we have to guarantee that there's savings involved with the project. So that shows all the calculations that we did to estimate what we told you guys the savings would be. So that's what we call our baseline. And that's what we're going to compare year one, which is 2024. That's what we're comparing 2024 to as the baseline. And we'll compare each year after to the baseline, guaranteed savings. And then we get into the section 4 is the reporting period results. That would be the results of 2024. Getting the updated fuel bills, electrical consumption, the as-bills from the lighting project, and comparing that, and doing the same calculations that we did for the baseline for this year's reporting year's values. And then section 5 is the analysis. That's where we compare them, kind of explain what all the numbers mean. We see a lot of tables and graphs, and try to visually make it digestible for everybody to compare those. And then recommendations, which I'll definitely talk about. What do you do now? We've definitely proven savings. I'll show you. What would be the next steps? What can we do to even improve it further? And some conclusions and references at the end. So section 1, the executive summary. The guaranteed savings were $148,000. That's what EMC was on the hook for. And we calculated that the realized savings were $229,000, which is $81,000 more than we guaranteed, which is excellent. I believe that one of the bigger savings was from the high school boiler. That exceeded the expectations. That was a ginormous boiler. I don't know if any of you have ever been in the old boiler room before it was redone, but it was like a train car, and when it lit up, you couldn't even hear yourself thinking there. It was wild. And now you have 2 boilers. It sounds like a large refrigerator when it's running, and it's carrying the whole building of these 2 modular condensing boilers, and it's a real difference in there. But the lighting definitely saved too. So I don't have it broken out here, but we saved 20,000 kilowatt hours over what we had guaranteed, so that was excellent as well. And like I said, the oil savings. So we converted it back. You're not on oil anymore. You do have the oil boilers at the middle school, but that's just for redundancy, just as a complete backup there. We showed the savings we converted the savings to oil using the units of energy, just because that's what we had guaranteed in the beginning, because that's what you did have, and that's just how that's why it says number 2, oil savings. Not inferring that you're using oil now. But definitely read the executive summary. I recommend reading the whole thing, it's a great read. I read it tonight, kids.
Just
Thank
like
you.
It does seem like something that I could also do.
This is like learning AutoCAD.
That's fun too.
Joel just pointed out that you have $2.15 per gallon for this year, but next year they bumped it to $1.59, so.
Yeah, Yeah, and so we take that into account. We got the bills from, well, I can get into that, that's not quite where I am, but thank you, exactly, yeah. Let's see. So Tom touched briefly on, we replaced all the lighting in the schools from the old fluorescent, I think it was mostly fluorescent, maybe some halogens. They take a lot of watts compared to the new LED lighting, and you get brighter lights for less wattage, significantly less wattage. That was basically the LED conversion. That was hundreds of fixtures. I don't know if you have a number.
I think it's about 3,800 fixtures.
Yeah, it was a lot of fixtures. And then also the boiler room. So this building has 2 boiler rooms, one over there and one on the school side. We removed 2 oil boilers on both sides here. The high school had a single boiler. We removed that oil boiler, and the middle school had 3, I believe it was 3, and we removed 1 and put in 2 propane boilers in place. So that's the only one where you still have the oil as a backup. So that was the scope of the boiler room project. So the M&R report, it's not like we invented an M&R report. It's a very standardized type of report. There's strict guidelines you need to follow. I referenced it. It's the IP MVP. It's an international standard, and so we followed all of that, which I talked about. And the standard really identifies like how it wants to prevent people from completely making up how they calculate these savings. So that's why it's a standard, and you need to follow it. And I laid all that out for everybody if you're interested. We did, you can see 3.4, I captured the heating degree days for the baseline period. The heating degree days basically tells you the more that there are, it tells you that how cold that winter was. So that's how we can compare. Since we did the average fuel use over the last 5 years, we averaged the heating degree days. So now we can compare that average to now the years moving forward. We also took into account the building occupancy schedule, which didn't really change from the baseline to the to 2024. But obviously, if you started implementing lots of new after-school programs and you ran the heating longer, you kept the lights on longer, that could influence the run times and the usage. So we captured all that, but there wasn't any changes there.
Also, when calculating the energy savings, we don't take 100% of the savings to offset.
Do you come to the mic, because otherwise the people at home
I was giving him a break.
can't
Turn
hear.
that one on.
When we calculated those savings,
You just gotta put the switch.
yeah, all right? Is it not going? When we calculated the savings for lighting and the oil to gas savings, we took about 90% of the actual savings, in some cases around 88%, just to be conservative for change of use of facilities. You have night classes, adult ed, more basketball games than you had in the prior year when we did the calcs. So there were some provisions made to offset those things. So moving forward, again, those same provisions are still remaining, which is, if you don't change use of the facilities, which is Eric indicated you didn't last year, then you're going to just remain ahead of the schedule for what you had for the prior years. The other thing that's that we didn't identify on there is that we calculated prior to it about $68,600 something in energy efficiency main savings, and I think we brought it in around $84,000 when it was all said and done. And so that was a good thing too, because you kind of predict what you think it's going to be, and then you have to do all the calcs and the applications, and so you realize all the energy savings too. Yeah. I don't know where you left off, sorry. That's okay.
I feel like it's not down.
Is there any questions that you guys have in regards to the report?
Yeah, I have a question. So I see that you built in sort of like the escalation rates and of the energy and all that stuff going
Yeah.
on. So if I look at the conditions of the building and how there's a lot of areas that deteriorate, like the seals are on the windows and stuff, and that stuff starts increasing,
Correct.
has any of that amount been factored in the projection of the cost savings and all that?
No. That's what I was kind of referring to. So good question about all the other ancillary things that are happening in the building is it doesn't take into consideration that we have not done any building envelope improvements because we really were asked to shift our focus from a holistic approach to just the boiler plants because they were in such desperate need of redundancy. And then all of a sudden it just came out of nowhere right after COVID area that within that couple of year time frame, they weren't making cast iron sections anymore for boilers. You had all cast iron through your entire district. So it became fairly critical that you got away from that. Otherwise, you're going to be canceling school quite often if you lost a boiler, especially in the fact that you have two buildings with just one boiler. So that's where our focus was shifted. That's exactly why I said that in the beginning, that we really should have been focusing on some of the other measures, but it was really primarily to focus on the heating plants.
Was there a plan to focus on that? And has there been like a scan of the buildings to see where most of like the energy loss is
Oh, yeah.
in the areas and stuff?
Yeah, we did infrared scans, we have those reports, we identified plenty of other opportunities. You also have pneumatic controls still in a lot of your schools, especially the middle school is loaded with it. This school's loaded with it, where the pound for pound, the biggest energy hog in a building or school is the compressor. Because you've got this pneumatic tubing, this plastic tubing that's running throughout the entire middle school, right? And that's being fed by a compressor that's pumping air. And that tubing cracks after a couple of decades. Well, fast forward 50 years, now it's really cracking. So it's leaking everywhere, but these tubes are above ceilings, behind walls, behind radiators, you can't get to them. So they continue to leak and the compressor continues to run all the time. And it's just pounding electricity all year long, way more than it should. So that was another game plan, is to identify a pneumatic plan to get rid of the pneumatics at maybe one school at a time, but also get you into a system and a platform where it's not proprietary. So you're in a system where every automation company in the state carries a Niagara type brand, which is open, right? Which is great for you because you then have the autonomy to go with whomever you'd like for service and install should you lose components or want to change service providers. We're a consultant, we don't care, we're not trying to get something in here that we only service. That's part of the reason we were chosen to do the project. So those things compiled with building envelope with the ventilation improvements would be the most logical next step for you guys. Yeah. Maybe phase 2, phase 3,
Now, is there like a way to estimate the cost to like redirect all that tubing without having to go in and just like put all new system in, going in like below all that, and replacing all of that?
You'd want to pull the tubing out and get rid of all the pneumatic actuators. They're big, they look like big cans on the sides of the air handlers. I mean, if you're going to replace 1975 air handlers, you're going to want to do the controls at the same time, make them electronic, not pneumatic, right? So you probably piece it out, because it would get fairly expensive. The problem is, though, you've got both situations where you've got pneumatic controls and 50-year-old air handlers and compressors throughout the entire school. You got to focus on probably one or two of the things at a time. I would say you want to focus on a couple of the air handlers with controls, and then do a couple more air handlers with controls. Or, if you've got this huge influx in your budget, which most school systems do not, and you do it all at once. But in reality, you kind of chip away at it.
One more question, sorry. So if I'm looking at the deterioration of the buildings and the amount of, fuel that we're gonna have to compensate to heat, but to make that, is there any type of projection of how those numbers are gonna flip, where it's gonna really set us upside down on saving at all?
No, right, you have, it's called a DOAS, a dedicated outdoor air system, with just a central exhaust fan in those 1975 units. They don't recover the air. So you have dedicated outside air, just pounding in outside air without really controlling or preheating it, or recouping the hot air that you've already tempered, right? So the new ones are energy recovering ventilation units, are a package unit, where it recovers and reclaims the heat in the air, so that you're not constantly bringing in outside air that you have to recondition every single time, right? Because you have to exchange the air every 15 minutes, 15 to 20 CFM per occupant. So when you're doing that, you're wasting a ton of energy. So these new units, if you chip away at it, you'll actually save a considerable amount of energy. And you're going to digital controls, so you're getting rid of the pneumatics. So those will still be a very attractive energy conservation measure, and we identified that a couple of years ago, but there's only so much you can take on at once, right? And I think Joel's known about this stuff. He made it abundantly clear in the beginning of the things he'd like to get done, but at the end of the day, there's only a certain amount of money that you can,
That's where I was going. Joel, you have this scheduled out, don't you? I mean, in terms of what we ought to do next and plan A of the phase, do you have that kind of calculated out somewhere?
Yes and no.
Joe.
We got
Oh,
Thank you.
As we discussed the last meeting, we can see that there's over $3 million worth of projects just for enveloped structures of the buildings. It really comes down to what Tom was saying, is like, you can go this direction and talk about energy, you can go the direction of keeping the building standing straight up. So there's just not enough for both. I do have this information. The guy that did the energy audit, I walked him around. We have all that information back. It's just more of, I think we all know what we just went through to get what we needed, and and that's not a shot at anybody. It's just there's only so much money. So it's we have I was discussing with Tom tonight. We have a strategic plan coming up next month. It's 18 members, and we can start to talk about putting some of those things that we want to. But just know that when we put that in there, it's a commitment that we need to see through.
The last project was done, it wasn't in your budget, you financed it through a tax exempt purchase. So that, once you go through that RFQ process, selecting a firm competitively, which is when you selected us, legally via Drummond Woodson and the state law, you're able to use that same firm to do subsequent projects, and then doing another phase of the tax exempt purchase, so it doesn't have to come out of your budget. And the thing that's attractive about the tax exempt purchase versus a bond is that the rates are very competitive. It's flexible in the fact that you can refinance those, but you also get a year of no payments. So, for example, the summer projects that we're voting on all throughout the state for this coming summer project to schools, their first payment's going to be due July of 2026. So it gives you a whole year to start saving energy to help make that payment. Like I was alluding to earlier, is like, don't take the savings out. You want to use that savings to make your payment. Yeah.
yes, so with the strategic plan, you're going to be creating kind of a roadmap about what that's going to look like, so that if we have an idea, going forward, that we're going to address this part of the problem and then this part of the problem, perhaps, who knows, there could be grants or there could be some kinds of things that we could take advantage of, but we know kind of a general roadmap of where we're going with that.
Yes.
Yeah. And so that's what you hope to accomplish with the strategic plan.
Yeah, and like Tom said, I've known about this for a couple of years. We've, working through it. So, the information's there. It's just more of when we want to put it into motion.
So the typical progression, next steps, even to get to this point, is that we use budget numbers, having done all of these measures 100,000 times, right? So we know what these things cost. So we don't have to fully engineer them and waste money engineering things that are never going to come to fruition, because we fully know you're not going to do a $30 million project. That's what you have in infrastructure improvements sitting there. You're going to peel away the things that you can financially that are palatable for a phase 2, right? So we put together these budgets and put them into a cash flow tool that allows you to pick and choose the measures that you think make sense, and it changes your annual contribution, what it's going to cost you. So it'll come up with, okay, 15-year lease purchase, we're going to finance this thing for. The state allows you 20 years, but use 15 for hypothetical sake. And then you say, all right, add in another annual at the middle school and maybe one more at the grade school. What does that do to our payment? And our tool that we used last time allows you to pick and choose these things And it's dynamic in the sense that it changes immediately what it's gonna cost you guys per year. And it's offset by things like energy savings, efficiency main rebates. We just did a heat pump job for Kittery Schools. It's like a $1.5 million heat pump. It's the entire 76,000 square foot school is now heat pumps as the primary source of heat and cooling. And it was about an $800,000 efficiency main incentive. So there's things like that to offset the cost of some of these grants. So it might not just be put in a new air handler. It might be going to heat pumps or something different, you know? It's just exploring the different options, putting them in the tool and allowing you guys the opportunity to choose what you want, right? Our job is just to set it up and you guys choose what you think you can do.
Thank you.
So my question is, I mean, are the bones of our school like pretty stable and good enough that if we keep picking away at all these projects, which are quite costly, I mean, at the end, are we gonna end up having to demo and rebuild because it's just, bones aren't that, structured for that?
According to the architectural study that we had, the structures of the buildings are pretty much sound. There's some issues here that are not major. They do exist, but the other two buildings are solid. So if you were asking me, I would say we would want to start working on envelope more than the structures themselves to recoup more energy. I mean, the figures you see in front of you, we have the open envelope, for lack of a better term, and we're still saving money. So those could certainly go up, but the reality is that that's where I would probably start. So, and just so you understand Tom's role here too, this is his world. Like his consult is to find these things. He's like a grant writer in a sense, for lack of a better term again, where he finds the best things that work for us, and he just makes a commission. He's not selling anything to us. He's just trying to help us out.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we're going in a good direction.
Yes.
That we're doing all these investments to make improvements that we can keep the structure.
Agreed.
Instead of having to rebuild a whole bunch. I'm just trying to think of the cost savings. As time goes,
Yes.
the prices of rebuilding are still climbing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Becky will tell you that I'm a huge advocate for our envelope at this point. I mean, you just walk around the school and we see the trim falling off, and that's embarrassing. Not only is it embarrassing, but it also opens up other areas that we need to address. So,
Since you get it, and like Joe said, it's dangerous though because most of the schools you have ventilation throughout the entire building. This building you don't, right? So you have to be careful of sealing up a building that doesn't have mechanical ventilation in it, because then you cause bigger problems, right? So we're all very cognizant of that in the approach. From an engineering standpoint, we're looking at all systems combined so that you're not shutting off the unit ventilators in this wing of the building. You no longer have fresh air, right? You can seal it up, but now you've got real problems because people have asthma and it's bad air and everything else. So all that's being taken into consideration.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I bring it also because, I mean, in the community, a lot of people don't understand like a lot of this stuff. So to bring kind of that understanding, people like, oh, why are we investing all this money in all these major little projects when we can just rebuild? So, I mean, I think this helps provide a lot more insight that, hey, this is going to be the most cost-effective way to rebuild our schools and get them where they need to be then, so.
Structurally, you guys are great. It's just things are getting aging, that's all,
Yes. Yes, and you make a good point. So, we're here, we are looking at these numbers. We are not in your business, so we don't understand them the way you do. And the public further, may not be able to follow. I think it's always good when we're looking down the road after the strategic, you're working on this strategic plan, that we are able to create a clear narrative for the people who are going to be voting down the line when we're asking them for money, so that they see, hey, there's a savings here. Hey, this is what we're doing, but putting it in, the common vernacular so everybody's comfortable and gets it.
The last time we did this, we had Tom come in and present to the town council in an open forum
Right.
for Q&A.
Great.
Usually there's a subcommittee that you guys create that selects the projects that make sense, then you bring it to the board so that you make the best use of your time, I think that's what happened last time. We had on a smaller committee, and these are the things that make sense to us, because we don't care what you guys choose. It doesn't matter the size of the project. We're a consultant, that's it. You guys choose what you want, but, then we can answer the questions.
And did you have more to share from the report? So with that?
I would like to go through more.
Yes.
You know, it's your appetite though. We're just getting to the math section, so that's what I thought everyone would be doing.
Oh, yeah.
No, we're gonna definitely skip over that. But there's a table 7, it's on page 9. That does show the savings and kind of the escalation of what we are guaranteeing over the years, because it was agreed upon when the contracts went through that energy is not getting cheaper. So you can see that each one of these rows will increase by 3%, which is listed down below. And then it gets into the baseline calculations, and it's pages and pages of calculating how we got to the lighting savings and how we did the fuel calculation and fuel conversion. So the boilers, not only does, it's a more efficient boiler, but we also changed from oil to gas. So there's a conversion calculation that was involved, and it goes on and on for each building. And then it's basically the same thing. Section 4 is like I said, the reporting year. So for this one, it's 2024. We did the same calculations over again, but this time, instead of using 2023's fuel rate and consumption, we got all the bills and utility data, the updated costs that you guys are paying for propane for that year, and we did all the calculations again based on all those numbers. And that's what is captured in this section 4. And after we get through all that, now it's kind of more exciting. It's section 5 is the analysis, and that's where the pretty graphs are, and some like summary tables so that you can see the comparisons. But so the first one, this is the lighting, that first page, and so the best lighting savings was actually in this building, the school side, but it did exceed, what we had guaranteed. So that's always where we want to be. But I mean, you're saving either way. I mean, if you saved less than we promised, we would have paid the difference. That's the guarantee. So we're never trying to, oversell on savings, because at the end of the day, if it's not performing, that's on us. The next page is the boiler room improvements, and like I kind of hinted before, the high school it crushed it. It had an extra $42,000 in savings than we had estimated. So I will say that last year was a slightly warmer year than that average. So what this is not accounting for that, because this is actually worst case. You're saving that much more if it was colder out and you use more fuel. So each time you're using like a unit of fuel, you were saving some dollar amount. So if you ended up using more because it was colder, the savings would have actually been more. If that makes sense. It's a little, it's a tricky one to capture, but I wanted to make sure that was known, because that's a good tidbit. Let's see. 5.3, it's kind of an all-in-one, has all the data in one spot for you. You can see that the total is an extra $800,000. So on to some recommendations. Obviously, these two measures did what we promised, and that's what we would hope to do for any other energy savings measures that were, in later phases. But we came up with some recommendations for what you can do, better with what you have right now. So you have all these new fancy boilers. They're high tech, just like newer cars. They have little computers in them, and they have all these sensors. So it's important to make sure that they're maintained. And so and just like your car, if your car starts running poorly, it's going to affect your fuel mileage. And it's the same thing. Diesels, if the sensors start getting dirty, they're going to not read whatever they're reading very well, and it's going to try to overcompensate, for instance, and use more fuel, essentially. So that's an obvious one. Maintain what you've put in and paid for. Like Tom was saying, the next one is evaluating other energy conservation measures. what makes sense next, priority-wise. It could be what saves the most, it could be a comfort, it could be ventilation, it could be any sort of priority, but there's definitely some more to identify and start to prioritizing in your master plan. And also in making sure all the employees understand, when stuff isn't being used, let's turn it off, let's save energy, just making the whole culture energy conscious, because that'll go a long way. And that's basically it. The conclusion basically says what I had.
Are schools set up on any sensors? So like if we're not in the room or a hallway, it would automatically shut off until it detects movement?
Yeah, some of them are, and Joel controls all those for the most part. He's up to speed almost literally with every sensor you do or don't have in the district, so, yeah, absolutely do.
So those are very cost saving if we were to eventually do the entire building, rooms and all that, so that.
Yeah, like, just for example, all the lighting, except for where we are now, has individual sensors on each light. So after a certain time, they turn off, or they turn on sometimes in the building. So something like that, instead of someone forgetting to turn the lights off or all of them on during the cleaning hours, let's say this turn is on.
Yeah, you also have dimming capability in every classroom, so that would be considered advanced controls. So the teacher can literally put the light levels or whatever is conducive for their learning environment. Some are, you also have 2 scenes for those advanced controls where they can come in and hit one switch, this is a toggle switch, and that will lower all of the, if you have a smart board, it'll lower the lights adjacent to the smart board down to like 50% or off, depending on what they wanted, and the lights in the rear of the room reduced down to 50%. Just by hitting one switch. So it makes their life a heck of a lot easier from a teaching and learning environment standpoint, And it's important to note that we had done a teacher survey that we sent out anonymously with a number of questions about their learning environment. How is your temperature consistency? How is your light levels? How do you feel about your overall classroom? Not, I like new paint colors and new curtains or a mini fridge or, just from an infrastructure standpoint. And so a lot of this came from the feedback from the teachers. There was over 100 and something responses immediately. I mean, they came in real quick. So we took all that information and put it into the report that we had done originally and said, look, the lights are flickering, they're loud, some of them don't work. At the middle school, they used to have these wooden boxes around the lights, which are probably cool in 75. But you couldn't even get the light out of any lumens out of the lamps because they were covered in wood. So it's like, I would love to get rid of the wood around my lights. So a lot of those things that they had, essentially said would be great to improve upon, you did. But a lot of it, you couldn't because it was temperature control related. It was like, at test time, sometimes the sweatshirt's coming on, sometimes we open windows, sometimes the temperature fluctuation is drastic. And that was probably the biggest complaint that we saw, that Joel saw, but that's nothing new for him. He's hearing those complaints all the time. So it's not just about energy sometimes, it's also about the learning environment and keeping it consistent so that you can prepare accordingly for a classroom, That's important to know.
So about what percentage of all 3 of our schools have the sensories to save?
For the lights,
Yeah.
all
like
of them
a rough
except
estimate.
this area of this building.
So all the schools have all the
All
sensors?
schools have brand new lights with sensors, yes.
Including daylight harvesting too. So
Yes.
if any of the fixtures next to a bank of windows and the outside light is bright, ambient light's good, it'll automatically lower the lights adjacent to the window bank to reflect the amount of lumens at the desk level, which is about 40-foot candles at the desk level, which is considered optimal learning environment, and a certain Kelvin too that we program them at. So they're all automated. You've got the super duper advanced control system. Yeah.
I didn't realize we were that. That's awesome. That's good. I was trying to see where we can get some extra things, but.
From a lighting standpoint, you need hard pressure from a lighting standpoint.
Sensors and heating and everything else for the buildings.
Temperature controls is your next thing, for sure. There's no question about it. Yeah.
We have another school.
Yeah, only at high school. And that's now 23 years old. So it's wild that that's your new school and it's 23 years old. It happens in every district that we deal with. But yeah. No, I mean, there's a lot of care and caution put into this thing from the beginning about doing the right measures that have the biggest impact. So you did capture that. It's just now there's still a lot left, but you guys are doing a good job maintaining the buildings.
Any other board questions? Did you have anything else, Beth?
No,
Gonna take care for me then now, I think.
Okay, so we'll now start with our new business. Item 7.1, to accept the superintendent's, so I'll entertain a motion to accept the superintendent's recommendation to move the first-year probationary teachers to first and second-year probationary status. And our list is attached.
So moved.
And any questions or discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Thank you for your unanimous vote. I'll entertain a motion to accept the superintendent's recommendation to move the second-year probationary teachers to continuing contract status.
So moved. Seconded.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Thank you for your unanimous vote. I'll entertain a motion to approve the following policies for first reading: IKAB, report card progress reports, and EBCC, bomb threats.
So moved. Seconded.
Discussion?
Yes, the report card, there's one change that I just want to draw your attention to, and it should be loose in your packet because the one that was in your staple packet somehow didn't get highlighted. So the only thing we're changing is the and to an or. So I did not want, this is what we are currently doing. The elementary school is on standards-based. The middle and high school, they're on more traditional grading, but in no place are we doing both. So that's why the or instead of the and. And so that's the change on that one. And then on the bomb threats, it's just some really what I would consider minor changes. Do not call our plan a crisis response plan, so you can see that change to change it to the emergency operations. We also deleted where it references the school resource officer, as we do not have one. And on page 4, we changed who will reschedule the lost instructional time. We put the superintendent in charge of that rather than the board. And those are the highlights of those two policies.
Does the board have any questions regarding these policy changes? Okay. And all those in favor? Thank you for your unanimous vote. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to rescind the following policies: the IJNDD, the Winthrop Middle School, Winthrop High School, Apple iBook guidelines. It's part of the procedures that are sent home yearly to students in the technology use packet. IJNDD-R, that's also the Winthrop Middle School and Winthrop High School Apple iBook sign-up procedures. That's part of the procedures that are sent home yearly to students in their technology use packet. Any motion?
So moved.
Any discussion?
No, other than these are not required, and these are something that we update annually, so it really doesn't make sense that this is a policy. It really just needs to be more.
So this will continue to stay enforced, it's not right.
Okay, anyone else? All those in favor? Unanimous? Okay. I'll entertain a motion for consideration and approval to employ a grade school life skills teacher for 2025-2026 school year as recommended by the hiring.
So moved.
I am happy to recommend Rebecca Booker as the grade school life skills teacher. Rebecca comes to us with 8 years of experience as a life skills ed tech here at the grade school. She has her bachelor's in child development and family relations. And I love that in her second interview with me that Rebecca was very reflective about how she reflects regularly on what she as the teacher can do differently when kids are not learning. And we are just so excited to welcome Rebecca to her new role as the life skills teacher from being an educational technician.
Okay. All those in favor? Thank you for your unanimous vote, and I was able to set my name too, and that, and I'm very excited for the grade school and welcoming her, so thank you. Okay, this is the second public comment section that we'll enter into. If we have folks in the room who'd like to comment, we ask that, oh, Sue, did you have something to say?
Yes.
Please, I thought you might, but I didn't, you didn't
Well,
speak
you
up.
typically ask. And
I thought that.
That's okay.
Yes, no, please.
And she is also on as well, just so you know. She has some sporting events with her kiddos this evening. But what I have written, I just want to say that it's with great enthusiasm that I recommended Rebecca Booker for the grade school life skills program teacher in Braintree. As Dr. Foley mentioned, she's been with us for the past 8 years as an Ed Tech 3 in that program. Rebecca has consistently demonstrated professionalism, compassion, and exceptional skill in supporting students with special needs. Known affectionately as Booker by her students, she is admired throughout the school community for her dedication, especially in working with our most challenging learners. Her ability to foster social connections, her willingness to take initiative, and her nurturing presence makes her an invaluable asset to any educational team. And we are all so very excited to have her step into this program.
Thank you so much.
And I'm getting text messages like crazy, like, woohoo, it's official. So
Oh,
they're all very excited.
wonderful.
That's great.
Well, congratulations. She's on.
She is.
Okay, congratulations and in your new position of teaching. That's so exciting. Okay, so we will once again head to our public comment section. If there are folks in the room or online who would like to speak, we just ask that you indicate online or step up to the podium. Okay, and at this time, we'll offer up this one for our school board comments. Okay, perfect. Oh,
I'll say something.
sure.
I know prom is coming up, and they're having an amazing theme. I know there were still some items on their list that they needed for donations, so I just wanted to see if anybody wanted to drop anything off of that. Oh, and I know a lot of the athletics are collecting cans down at Jensen's, I never say that right. So if anybody wanted to donate their cans to any of our sport teams and cheerleading, they're definitely collecting cans for that.
Thank you, Ivy. Anyone else? Okay. At this time, we are going to enter into executive session, so those folks who've been asked to stay behind for that, we ask you to do so. We will not be taking any action for these 2 executive sessions, so we'll stop our